Hey guys, Mr. Barnes here again, bringing another math video, and my thumb has blue ink on it. So, in this math video, I'm going to kind of continue building off what I talked about in the last one, which was imperial units and metric units. So today, I'm going to talk about converting imperial units. So, I have this neat little diagram that I like to use for my students. I'm going to do two videos on this. One where I do sort of like a proportionality approach, and this one I kind of use logic. Because a lot of you guys have a lot of experience with these units, and you don't have to go crazy really thinking about all the things that you need to know about this stuff. So I like to use this little diagram here, and I'm just opening up my textbook for a second so I can look at some conversion factors. Alright, so let's see. So if you look at this guy, I've got my 4 imperial measurement units written out here. So inches, feet, yard, and mile. So what you notice is we go from a big unit to a small, from a small unit to a big unit. And some people like to write that there. They like to write small, big. So what I mean by small, big is that a mile, like 1 mile, would be way bigger than 1 inch. And 1 foot is bigger than 1 inch. 1 yard is bigger than 1 foot. 1 mile is bigger than 1 yard. So this would be a small unit. This goes all the way to a big unit. So if I'm going from a small unit to any big unit down, I would divide. So if I have 5 inches and I want to change that to miles, I would divide by the conversion factor. Whereas if I have a big unit and I'm going to inches, I would multiply by the conversion factor. So that way I kind of really don't have to think about setting up this big old proportion. I just kind of got to know this logically. So we'll see where this applies, and I'll do an example here now. So here's my example. Let's convert 9 yards to feet and 9 yards to inches. So if you look at my diagram, let's start with the yards to feet. So if I'm on the yard, I have 9 yards given, and I'm going to feet. So I'm going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit. I'm going to multiply. So I need to know the conversion factor between yards and feet. Well, I know that 1 foot is equal to 3 yards. Alright, so if I want to change that to feet, all I really have to do is multiply it by 3. So I would take my 9 yards, multiply it by 3, and that gives me 27 feet. And there it is. Simple as that. Now, if I want to go from 9 yards all the way to inches, it might be better if I went to feet first. So I'm going to use this number, and then I'm going to use the fact that 1 inch is equal to 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So if I have 27 feet, I'm going to inches, so feet is before inches on my little chart. So I'm going to go from feet to inches, so I'm going to multiply it by the conversion factor. So I would go 9 yards times 12, and that gives me, well, I don't know, I'm not a mental math genius. 9 times 12, that's one thing I'll never pretend to be, guys. 108, and I don't like making mistakes on videos, and that will be in inches. There it is. So there's a pretty safe bet, guys, that your math teacher's not going to like this. But what I tell my students is that when you're doing stuff, and this particular thing, you're not going to want to set up a proportion. You're going to want to do it as quick as you possibly can in the real life situation. So that's why I show my students this. If this works for you, I say use it. Any math teachers marks this wrong, you know, I don't know. It's up to you. Whatever. You should ask your teacher first before you do it. But I tell my students, if it gets you the right answer, that's the most important thing, is that you understand the process and it gets you the right answer. All right, so let's look at a slightly more complicated example where you have a situation. It's always easier to go from a big unit like yards to a smaller unit, feet or inches, but it's a little bit more complicated to go the opposite way because it doesn't always work out nice and neat. So for example, 57 inches is not going to completely convert to a nice foot number. There's going to be something that's left over, and that's because we're going to divide. So let me show you what I mean. So if I'm going from inches to inches to feet, and that's what I'm going to do first, my first unit that's there. I'm going to have to divide because I'm on this side. So I'm going to inches to feet, I have to divide. So I know my conversion factor is 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So I take 57 and I divide it by 12. Now I don't know how many times that works out, but it's not going to be perfect. So 57 divided by 12 gives me 4.75. So I know that this guy divides 57 4 times, but there's a little bit left over. So there's 0.75. Now 0.75 is a good number to work with, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to sort of take the little bit more complicated approach, in which is I'm going to convert to a mixed number, and I'll show you why I want to do that. Now your calculator a lot of times can do that for you. And at 0.75, you know that's 3 over 4. You can kind of do a little bit of math with it, but I'm going to take this way because sometimes you're not going to get a decimal that your calculator can work out or that you know off the top of your head. So what I want to do now is I want to change this to a mixed number. So 4 times 12 is 48. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 57 subtract 48, and that's going to leave me with 8. So 57 subtract 48 is not going to be 8. I bet you. 57 subtract 48, it's going to be 9. I knew it. So 9. I won't tell you how I knew it. All right, so now having that number, we know the mixed number. So the mixed number is going to be 9 and 12 on the bottom. So 4 and 9 over 12. So that is my mixed number. So what that means is I have 4 feet and 9 inches out of a possible 12. So I don't have enough to make up a full foot. I have 9 of those inches out of a possible 12 that I would need to make up a full foot. So my answer is going to be 4 feet 9 inches. And that is it. So, I mean, I know it's not that easy, but still, it's one of those things that it's kind of useful to you to be able to do that. So that's why I said if you wrote that as 3 over 4, it's not immediately obvious that you need to make sure. But if you did write it as 3 over 4, you might say, well, I need this to be 12, so I multiply by 3 over 3. That's how I knew I shagged up that little subtraction. It's been a long day, guys. All right, so let's go ahead and try this one now. So I'm going to take the 57 inches this time and go to yards first. So I got to use the conversion factor. So I can use, let's see, what have I got here? So I can use the fact that I don't have it in front of me. Well, I can use this, that 1 foot is equal to 3 yards. But I also know that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So that means that 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. And I think that's correct. Let me just check. La 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 la. It's been a long day, guys. Been a long day. And I just am so tired. And that is correct. Alright, so now that we have that, I'm going to divide this guy again. I'm going from yards to inches, so a big to a small, I divide. So I take 57, divide by 36. And again, I want a mixed number with this guy. So I have 57 divided by 36. That's only going to give me 1. So I get 1. So I get 1. And you can see that that's not a very nice decimal. So if you look at that guy, that is not a nice decimal. So I'm going to use my my technique for getting this. So I multiply these two together. So then I just go 57 minus 36. So 57 minus 36, 21. So I have 21 out of 36. So that means I don't have enough. This is in inches. So I have 1 foot and 31 inches out of a possible 36 inches to get me another yard. So what I can do now is take this 31 inches and actually convert it to feet. So I can take my 31 inches, and I know I can divide that by 12 because I have this conversion. Divide it by 12. So 31 divided by 12. And you can see it's only going to go in twice. And then I have another decimal left over. So I can multiply these two together. So I can go 31 subtract 24. And that's going to give me 7. So I get 7 out of 12. Alright? So, what I can do now is I can write my final answer. So I got 1 foot from this part, so 1 yard. And then that 31 inches gets converted to 2 feet. And left over we have 7 inches. So I have 1 yard, 2 feet, and 7 inches. So guys, I hope this makes sense. I know I messed up a little bit here with this mental math here, but give me a break. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. And personally, if you don't like this way, which I kind of never use myself, but some students find it, they like it. If you don't like this way, I'm going to make another video on proportionality. So you can watch that video to get a little idea of how you do that. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in class.